What's going on, everyone? Charlie here. I'm going to show you how to work with some more market data today. And today, specifically, we're going to look at the New York Fed API. There's no key required here, so anybody can just go and use this. And you can get some pretty interesting data that will give you some insights on the reverse repo market, securities lending market, treasury operations, SOMA holdings, things like that. And we're going to be using Python, and I'll assume at this point that you have your Python environment set up, you have Python installed, or Conda, whichever one you like to use. If you're unsure how to get to this point of setting up, I do have several videos on the channel that you can watch to aid in the setup process. But for now, we're going to be diving into this real quick, and this won't take very long, but first thing you want to do, obviously, is create an empty project folder, VS Code. I've done so right here. I've named it New York Fed for this example, and I named the file main.py that we're going to be working out of. I've set my environment, everything's good to go, and now we just need to go to the website. And we will possibly be using ChatGPT 3.5 to help in this process, but maybe not, we'll see. So we'll do New York Fed API in the Google search, and the first thing that comes up should be the market data APIs. And when you click on this link, it has a bunch of information. You can get email alerts for it if you want to enter your email here. But basically, if you scroll down, you will get the base URL, which is this right here. And then you'll get the different sections that you're able to utilize. So what we have to choose from here is agency mortgage-backed securities, central bank liquidity swaps, guide sheets, primary dealer statistics market share, reference rates, repo and reverse repo operations, securities lending operations, SOMA holdings or system open market account holdings, and treasury securities operations. So you have all these to choose from. And in this example, I'm going to go ahead and we're going to look at the reverse repo and repo operations. And we're going to look at the latest one. So if you click on these categories, it actually will expand to different endpoints. So you can see here we have the latest, last 2 weeks. We have the last number of our choosing, so last 10, 15, 20, whatever we want. Then we have a search endpoint, which will allow us to search for different things based on different inputs, such as available values for format, which is JSON, XML, CSV, XLSX. This is the format you can choose from to get it returned in. You have the start and end date to choose from. You have the method, which is multiple, single, or fixed. And then you have the available values, which is repo and reverse repo. So if you wanted to test these out, they have a try it out button, which you can use. And then you can basically go through here, select your options. We're going to go with reverse repo. Let's do all options or all operations. Let's do the results and let's format it in JSON. And then you can hit the execute button. And when you get the execute button hit, essentially just go ahead and copy this URL here. This is your URL needed to call this exact endpoint setup. And then you can parameterize it in your code however you need. So let's go back to our code here, and we're going to import one library, requests, and then we're going to say def repo operations. And then we're going to pass in, for now, nothing. We're going to say URL equals, we're going to put F strings, we know we'll need parameters, and there's our URL. So now what we can do is right here, we can change all to, see here, method. So we'll change all to method because that's going to be the method that you're able to utilize. So method here. And then we'll pass in method as an argument. And then we'll put default as all. And then the format, we'll do default JSON. And then all you got to do here is take latest.json and parameterize that as format. And then where it says results, we will just need to go to the status and change results to status, and then pass in status as a string with the default value being results. And I believe there's one more. We have reverse repo, repo, or all. Might as well use all here. instead of reverse repo. That way we get both sides and all the data. And then if we want to filter it out further later on, we can just select the different types. So we have all, repo, and reverse repo for this part here. So we're going to take reverse repo and change that to, let's see, operation string equals all. Okay, so now we have our URL built. And what we can do now to further make this easier to remember everything is we can make a quick doc string. To do that, you just type 3 quotes wrapped around the code block. And essentially what we're going to do is we're going to say arguments, or actually let's define it first. To say gets the repo / reverse repo operation data from the New York Fed API. Arguments are going to be method, the method type, and our options are going to be all. And what was the other options again? We have all, repo, and reverse repo. No, I'm sorry, method was fixed, single, or multiple. So we have fixed, single, multiple. Then we have the operation type, which we have repo, or all, which is default, repo, and reverse repo. I'm going to erase those dots here. And then we need to put all here as our default for method. So now when we go call this function later, it'll be really easy to remember what all of the different options are. And then we have format. We format to return the data in. And then we have JSON, which is the default. Then we have XML, we have CSV, XL, SX. Then last but not least, we have, what's the last one? Results, right? Yeah, status. The result status, or I'm sorry, the status of the current operation. And those options are going to be results, or I'm sorry, let's do summary first. Summary of data. And then we have results, the results of the operation, which will be the default. Okay. And we might as well put this one on top, keep it consistent. And there we have it. So now we have everything built. Our doc string is nice and ready to go. It's all nice and neat. We're going to be easily able to look at this whenever we want to call it. So let's go ahead and do that. We've imported requests. Let's go ahead and call this function now after we do some simple code real quick. So we're going to do response equals request.get URL.json. Actually, let's just do this for now. And then we're going to print the response.status code, and hopefully it'll be a 200. And then we're going to call the function down here by doing data equals, what did we name this? Repo, right? Repo operations, and then we're going to pass in, really we don't have to pass in anything. But you see how easily we can look at this doc string now? Very nice. So let's go ahead and run this now. Print data. And let's see what we get back here. We should get a status code of 200. And we get a status code of 200. Perfect. Okay, so now that we know that we're getting data back, what we can go ahead and do is make an if statement real quick and say if response.status code equals 200, then we're going to go ahead and we're going to make the data equal to response.json, and then we're going to return the data, and we're going to run this again. Now we should get the actual data back from the latest operation. And there is no latest operation because, again, it's the weekend. So that's why we have multiple endpoints. So you have this one built, which is going to return to you the latest operation, essentially from, let's say, next Monday, whenever you want to run this at 12:15. If you run that first function, you'll be able to get the data next Monday or tomorrow. And you can see here that there's no results on the website either, but we can use the other endpoints available to us, which we are going to do real quick. So that one we just did will get you the latest info. The last 2 weeks will get you the last 2 weeks of information. So let's go ahead and do this. And I believe it's going to have most of the same arguments. We have operation type, all JSON. Let's just go ahead and execute this real quick and get the URL. It's going to be the same exact process. I won't bore you with the doc string on this one. However, pretty simple stuff. So def repo last 2 week. We're going to pass in nothing for now. URL equals this right here. And then our arguments again, we're going to be operation type, method, and format, much like before. We're going to say all, method, all, and then format is going to be JSON for now. Fill these in. Method. Now we're going to print these results and do the same thing. So response equals request.get URL. If response.statuscode equals 200, data equals response.json, return data. Now what we can do is we can say data down here equals repo last 2 weeks. And we're not going to pass in anything because everything has default arguments, and we're just going to print this data. Okay, so we get back a nice list or dictionary of data. So theoretically a list of dictionaries, and it's a lot to look at, right? So what we can do from here is we can start what's called parsing the data down from these dictionaries. And to do that, it's very, very simple. If you're just now beginning at this, what helped me, the way that I learned how to do it real easily is it's really simple logic, right? So if you think about what's in these dictionaries, right? These are items. They're items, and how they work, if it's a dictionary with curly braces like this, it'll be a dictionary. You have the key right here, which is security type, and the value is treasury. And the next key is amount submitted, with the value being the amount submitted. The amount accepted, same thing, so on and so forth. Now, the way to get these items in a more, manageable way is to say for items in data, print items. And we get one thing, repo. So now we know the parent key of this is repo. So what we can do is we can just space this down, and now we know that we can define repo as repo equals data repo. And then simply change data to repo and do the same thing. So now instead of looking in data, because we just did that, we know what's in data, which is repo, and we've now defined repo. Now we do the same thing, but we look in repo. So now for items in repo, we want to print those items. So let's go ahead and do that. And we have another parent key, which is operations. So now it's literally the same thing. Operations equals repo operations, and then for item in operations, print item. This is how I did it when I first started learning, and it helped me out a lot because it's the same thing. You just for this and that, find this until you get down to the bare attributes. Which, okay, so now you see how we have a nice big dictionary of data again. Big dick. But yeah, you have a nice big dictionary of data. So we're going to take this big dictionary of data and we're going to make it look nicer by first seeing what the individual attributes are. And to do that, simply, since we know we're down to the bare operation, what we got to do is simply zero index this off. Because now, instead of looking at the list of dictionaries, we're only going to look inside of the first dictionary and get the items within that, which should be our arguments. So you should just see a list of variables rather. So there we have it right here. You have operation ID, auction status, operation date, settlement date, everything basically that you just looked at, but in a nicely displayed way. So now you know what to work with. And this is stuff I like to use GPT for. So we're going to take this over to it and we're going to say, make a class that will utilize these attributes with self and use list comp rehension, as these are all lists of dictionaries. And there you have it, class financial operation. We're going to change the name. And I don't really like the way it did it, but we'll see. We'll see. That's terrible. GPT-3 is retarded. Let's try GPT-4. Make a class using these variables where the class is using self, no other functions, just simple list comp using i.get attribute for I and data for all of them. GPT-4 will take a little bit longer, but it should come back with what we're looking for here. Perfect. So that's exactly what I was about to manually do. This right here, which is essentially going to loop through all of those dictionaries, grab all of the attribute values that we want, and then return them to us. But the reason I like to do it this way, and I'll show you in a second, is because it makes the data a lot more manageable and easy to work with when you're actually calling the function. Okay, so it made us the class. All we're going to do here is change the name because it did get everything else right. And we're going to simply make a new file. We're going to call the file fed_models.py, and then we're going to paste that in there. And we're just going to change the name. We're going to say repo operations. And this should be the same whether you use the latest operation or the last operation. I'll just have to add some additional logic to use this for the latest one, since it's not a list of dictionaries, it's a single dictionary. But anyways, let's go ahead and import this now to our main file. And to do that, we do from fed models import reverse repo or repo operations. And now when we go to our function here, or all this work that we did down here, what we can do now is essentially erase this return data up here where we have our function. Zoom it a little bit so you can see this better. So we have our function, right? Repo last 2 week. And essentially the work we did down here, we can now put up here, because it's essentially the same thing. And now we want to use that model we just made to make this easier to work with. So we can erase that. And since we know that this is the parent key holding the majority of the data, now what we can say is parsed data equals repo operations. And then we can return the parsed data. And now when we call this data equals repo operations, we don't have to pass in any arguments. Now, check this out. Whenever we use data dot, sorry about that. We need to get the repo last 2 week. Wrong function there. But whenever we use the dot now, check it out. All of the attributes are clearly listed right here. We can pick and choose whichever one we want, or we can choose all of them, because I'm about to make a data dictionary where you can utilize all of them. But if you want to just get them, one at a time, let's say you have a Discord server and you want to just be posting to a channel somewhere, like how much the repo was today and what day it was, then you simply do data.operation date, data.amount accepted, data.amount submitted. And then you can say date equals accepted equals, and then submitted equals. You just print that out. Run this real quick. See what we get back. Oh, you know what? I didn't save it. There we go. And now we get our data. So now you can see that this is all the data in these lists that correspond to the data attributes we just printed out. But to make this even better, what we're going to do is we're going to go back here and say, now please make a data dictionary of all of the variables using self.as data frame within the class. Nope, not a method. Just include self.datadict in the class. So now what it's going to do is it's going to build the dictionary using all these attributes that we can just call, easily convert to a data frame, and then there you have it. Now you have a function that can easily get you the latest repo operations or the last 2-week operations, get it to a CSV file, and save it to your local machine. And there you have it. The data dict is right here. This is exactly what I wanted. Now we can just simply copy this data dictionary and move it over to our models right here. Paste that down, and we're going to move this over. And there you have it. Now the last 2 things to do is we're just going to space this down. We're going to import pandas, which is essential for working with data frames. We're going to import it as PD. And then the last piece of code that goes in this file is self as data frame equals pd.dataframe self.datadict. And now when we go back to main, instead of these attributes, we can simply do print data.as data frame. And then we can do this, CSV equals data.as data frame dot to CSV, name it repo operations .csv, and let's go ahead and remove the index, which we don't need on there. And let's run this now. Sick. It looks like there was some nested dictionaries, though, in there. Let's look at the data frame structure. Okay, cool. Yeah, then there you have it. There you have a nice data frame of the data. We can now do something crazy and use AI Trader. I've made a stock market trading helper, basically, that utilizes about 118 different functions that can help you analyze trends, charts, graphs, generate trends, charts, graphs, tell you what the latest short interest is for whatever ticker, volume analysis, news. It can find deep correlations. It can tell you the GEX levels, IV levels, all that fun stuff. So let's go to our file that we made, our practice file in New York Fed, and let's just give it this repo operations file. You can give it your data files and it will actually analyze them and render charts and things like that. Show the latest repo trend visually. And then it will take the spreadsheet and we'll start analyzing it. If you want, you can expand this and view the code. It's going to first take a look at the repo data head, which is essentially the first part of the data. Yeah, okay, so total amount accepted was a nested dictionary that we would likely need to take care of to get it what's called flattened for the data to look right. And what it's doing now is it's actually building the plot to show us the latest repo trend based on this data that it just made us. I'll link this below as well. There you have it. The reverse repo trend as of 11/17, starting from 11/07, last 2 weeks. You clearly see it's been trending down. As inflation went up, the repo went up. Now inflation's where it's at. And Jerome Powell said, as inflation or as the repo goes down, it will have the same effect as a rate hike. So keep that in mind. But there you have it. Um, Hopefully that should help somebody at least get a starting point on how to get some of this data. And if you already want to use a full SDK built that has all this stuff ready to go, head over to the GitHub repo, FUDSTOP, and I've already built all this stuff out where you can just immediately import all of this and work with it. As far as APIs that I have available on here, you're going to be able to choose from Earnings Whisper, FedPrint, Federal Register, Gex, MISC, which includes things like weather. You can get the weather using your weather app API key, and then a Upsplash, which is a image fetching API. You have the New York Fed, obviously. You have the Office of Financial Research, Options Industry Council, Polygon, RSS Feed SDK, Stoxera SDK, which Stoxera has been down lately. I don't know if they're coming back. We'll have to wait and see. Treasury from the U.S. government, and then we have Webull. None of this needs an API key except GexSpot, Polygon, Earnings Whisper, and FedPrint. Everything else should be no key required. So anyways, hope this helps somebody. Y'all have a good one.